Greetings. After today's announcement, I received a good amount of questions. Turns out it was more than enough to fill up an installment, so... well, here we go. Kiki asks, if you could compare Twilight to any book, based on how close their non-plots are, what book would it be? That's a tough one. Good place to start, I suppose. I think I'd have to go with Confusing Emotionally Abusive Relationships for Romance for Dummies. But in all honesty, I really can't answer this question, because I haven't really read that many books that go so far out of their way to avoid having a plot. Do cookbooks count? Moving on. Abridged fan asks, why do people compare Twilight to Harry Potter? It's because they're batshit insane. No, really. I mean, it's obviously not based on sales, because while Twilight as a whole has sold about 9 million, and that number's kind of a rough estimate because it sold somewhere about 8 million before Breaking Dawn was released, including the pre-orders, and I don't know how much it sold since then, but it wasn't that much. Especially when you consider the umpteen thousand returns, so rounding it off to about 9 million, I'm giving it a shot and being nice. Whereas, on the other hand, Harry Potter has sold, well, let's just say it like this. The latest Harry Potter book, which obviously would have sold the least, has sold over 43 million copies by itself. So it's obvious that it's not based on sales. And it's not based on genre either, considering that Harry Potter is kind of an urban high fantasy, while Twilight isn't even in the fantasy genre at all, as it's kind of a paranormal romance. That's not based on characters, because, well, Harry Potter's characters are kind of, well, let's just say they have depth and they progress as the series goes on. They learn things, they adapt, so forth and so on. And Twilight, you just have a bunch of cardboard cutouts. Maybe it's based on fad? Because other than that, it's only possibly because they're batshit insane. I mean, there's not really much of a logical explanation. Moving on. Abridged fan also asks, do SparkNotes really have a Twilight section? And do college and high school classes really put this in their lesson plans? For the first part, no. SparkNotes does not have a section on Twilight. For the second part, I have heard accounts, though, of colleges and high schools having Twilight included in their English reading lists, but that's kind of to be expected, considering how much the education system has been declining over the past however many years. So, sorry. Might want to build that bomb shelter soon. Moving on. Miyu wants to know, in the eyes of an anti, is making fun of the author fine or mature? I'd probably say that depends on the individual. While some might consider it fine, some might not, and the maturity of it really depends on how they're making fun of her. Personally, I think it's perfectly fine to make fun of her. She put herself out in the public eye. She kind of makes an ass of herself, so I'd say that to an extent, yes, it is perfectly fine to make fun of the author. But as for the maturity, again, from my perspective, it depends on what you're making fun of her on the grounds of. Like, I can consider it alright to make fun of her on the basis of what she says in interviews, or basically how she portrays herself, or just basically how she handles her craft. Like, constantly around TwilightSource.com, I am known for my rationalization of all the various problems that she has with writing. Like, basically my explanation for everything that she's done wrong, everything that she's done that really just gets at you. It could be considered making fun of her. Basically, Meyer's a hack. Moving on. Silver Tamagotchi inquires, what do you think of the common Twihard arguments? It est, you're just jealous, it's fiction, why do you keep reading them, etc. Do you have any personal favorites, either because they made you think, or because they're unintentionally hilarious? Well, considering that I was the one who said that the Twilight Fangirl is a curious adaptation of the species that tends to eschew logic whenever possible, I think they're pretty fucking stupid. And those arguments, they're completely devoid of any logic or reason at all. And as far as a favorite, I'd probably have to go with the one about why do you review a book that you don't even like. And it's one that kind of makes you think, I guess. Basically, I guess the answer would be that it's kind of to balance things out. You can't exactly have a fair and balanced opinion of it. Fox News! Kidding. You just can't really get a realistic view of a book from reading only favorable reviews. Chances are that'll cause people to become even more of an anti than I am if they go into the book thinking that it's some great masterpiece and turns out that it sucks, which it does. Also, I do it for the lulz, which Encyclopedia Dramatica defines as doing something for the fun of someone else's expense, which means, yes, fangirls, I'm doing it because it pisses you off. Moving on. Song from Bohemia asks, if you saw Stephanie Meyer on the street, what would you do, say, or think? If I saw Stephanie Meyer on the street, I'd probably ignore her, but I'd smirk under my breath. Just kind of like, what did I say? Probably not much, unless someone actually noticed me smirking, and then we'd probably get into some sort of a debate on Meyer's lack of skill with writing. And what would I think? I'm a fire in my labor!